it's just going to capture what's on the screen in my voice and put it on the page so on Moodle so that just in case you forget what I was talking about. So like I said, we really don't have too much time left. So the first half of today, I'm just going to talk about what we still have to do and when it's going to happen and all that happy stuff. And then then we're going to do critiques for your Spark pages because as you know, that was a warm-up assignment for the big Spark page assignment, which is one of your major final projects. So so we're going to critique you mostly in the spirit of trying to do it better the next time around. Okay, hopefully we'll be able to get to everyone today. If not, then we can do some others next week. So okay, so what do we have time for? So we are going to have our last online day is going to be Thursday. And so in about 15 minutes from now, you will fully understand all the different things that you need to be using that time for. So next week, we will meet for both those class periods. I'll do some demonstrations on Tuesday for some of the embeds that we're asking you to do for the enhancing your WordPress site. And then we'll do a few more critiques, and then also on Thursday, which is the last day of class for this class, we will also be looking at some of what you've done so far and improving and enhancing your WordPress site. So we'll also be critiquing your WordPress sites next week as well in terms of what progress you've made so far. On that day, I'll talk a little bit more about the final exam, but I'll talk about it today as well, and that'll kind of be it in terms of class. Okay, so the final exam, so it says TBA there. I'll go over that first. So if you scroll down to the very bottom here, all this stuff. Okay, so what it's going to be? So it's going to be on Thursday, December 13th at 1 o'clock. That's our final exam time. So you should reserve the whole 3-hour slot for that, okay? Now I'm going to have a little bit of mercy on you, okay? Because I'm talking with the other instructors are doing a little bit different, but none of them are giving like a big cumulative multiple choice type exam. We covered, for the first exam, the midterm, we covered a lot of those kind of little nitty gritty details in terms of like formats for print, and there actually was already a little bit of web type history in those questions that normally could have been on the final. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something that's a little bit more reflective. So I'm going to ask you. So one of the biggest gripes for faculty for the class evaluation surveys that you fill out is that they're not very useful for us to know how do you make the class better, okay? Because there is one section that says something, and a lot of times, if it was a class a lot of people like, usually the students don't answer anything, right? So you're like, okay. So what I'm going to do is for a lot of the questions, I'm just going to give you some more specific questions about how can this course be improved, and that's going to be all. If you answer the question, you could credit it at all. So even if you're like, I really didn't like this section, as long as you answer and put information, you get credit for that question. Okay, so it's going to be like either or. If you don't fill in the question at all, then you get the question wrong for whatever the points are. So let's say a question's worth like 8 points. You get 8 points as long as you put a paragraph of answering the question. So they're going to be a little bit more detailed questions than what you would get in the official student evaluation for the course. And then you will also turn in your last tutorial journal. So if you're the kind of person who writes a couple sentences every time you look at one of the videos that we suggest or the readings, then you can continue doing that and save it in a Word document, and then you can just cut and paste. Okay, so this will be a Moodle exam that'll appear right here. So there'll be a little thing here, final exam. and at 1 o'clock on December 13th, you can click up. You should click on that, and it will open and start. Okay. You don't have to be in here in class. You can be at the library. You can come in here. You can be in your dorm room. You can be in your room at home. Probably in a subway or airplane are not a good places to be, right? I mean, I guess nowadays they have Wi-Fi in airplanes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That might be a big risk. So if for some reason you don't take the exam, that's a very bad for your grade because it's still going to count for a significant portion of your grade, right? So this is, I don't want to call it an easy A because it's going to be all important stuff, and there will be 2 or 3 short essay questions covering stuff from modules 4 and 5. And what I will do is I will put a little exam study guide, and all it's going to be is a couple bullet points of some type of thing, kind of knowledge bases that you need to be aware of or to cover. That should have come from the readings from those modules. Okay, so it won't be cumulative. It will cover everything after the midterm, which is the audio section, the section on WordPress, the section on video, and embedding into Spark and WordPress. Okay. So there will be a couple of those. So those will be the ones you want to kind of focus on, and they will be essays. Okay. So I'm going to give you the whole period, which I'm pretty sure is 3 hours. So it's going to open at 1 and it's going to end at 4. So and it's going to be open notes. But because of that, the grading is going to be a little bit harder. Okay, because you're going to be able to go and read all these experts. You're going to have 4 hours. So it's going to be kind of more like an open notes type essay. Like if a teacher gave you, okay, you have a week to write this essay and go do research on it, go find secondary research on it, and cite your answers. Okay, they're going to be short answer. Okay, so I'm going to give you an indication of I don't want to read 5 pages of you going crazy. Okay, I want to read like I'm going to tell you. So for this question, it's going to be limited to 200 words. Here's the question. Please cite your answers. Okay, so it kind of ups the ante a little bit. But at the same time, you have the full time to answer it as well. And most of the points aren't going to be these. So probably about half the points will be the essays, and the others will be asking you questions that are about the course, how I can improve it, and then also your tutorial journal as well. Okay, so it's not going to be a multiple choice or short answer. Okay? So any questions about that before we go? So that's the last thing. Mm-hmm.
So that tutorial journal, is that all the tutorials from the semester, or just like...
No, that's like you've already turned in, the last ones you turned in were from modules 4 and 5, right? So, wait, did I ask you? Yeah, so you turned in those. So this is just the embed, so this is really just the last one about embeds.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? So, I mean, technically speaking, you have that 3-hour window. You could just cobble it together, and that's fine, because you should be able to remember. Okay? So not a lot of multiple choice, or actually, no, I'm sorry, no multiple choice, and limited number of these short essay questions. Okay, so let's go back, and that is our official final exam time. All the way up, okay. Okay, so for the embedded media, I'm going for Thursday. I'm going to go through and make a video talking about a few of these things, and all these are to help you for the assignment that has to do with re-upping, with revising, enhancing your WordPress site. Okay. As you know, with Adobe, and this is also just the case with multiple platforms and digital media, not just WordPress, are a lot about embedding. So, like, I guarantee some of you will have jobs where there'll be a website or a content management system for a website or something that you have to go and embed social media posts or different things, and just be aware of how to do that. In this class for the until the end of the semester, we're just focused here on these are all for WordPress. Okay, so Spark Page, it'd be great if it had more support for embeds, social media embeds, and I'm not really sure why they haven't really gone that route. Yeah, I can't really answer because they certainly could make it so that you could put a Instagram embed. I think there's like a workaround. You can do a Twitter embed. Now, can anyone think, let's say you really wanted like an Instagram post, like the way it's all marked up and everything, to be in the Spark Page? Does anyone think of a workaround around the fact that they do not have an embed code to put a Instagram post into the Spark Page, as like they would on WordPress? It's very easy to do on WordPress. Anyone think of a workaround? Yeah.
Can you take like a screenshot of it?
Yeah, that's it. You take a screenshot. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, maybe because you want to kind of focus on, like, let's say you're covering an event with a Spark Page, and you know that there's a big social media presence about it, okay? Because a lot of stuff, like nowadays, there's people taking pictures, they're posting on Twitter, they're posting on Instagram, and so if it's one of those type of events, then having a social media embed in its, like, embed type format shows the viewer, gives the viewer that sense of the liveness and the social media sense of the event. So yeah, you could just take a screenshot. I don't think now in certain platforms you can take a screenshot and then you can just go and you could just hit paste and it would paste right in. I don't think you can do that with Spark. Instead, you would have to then go to Preview or Photoshop, hit New, and then since it's in the cache for that computer, it would automatically know, oh, okay, I think you want this new file to be the size of that photo in the cache, and then you just hit paste into Photoshop, and bam, there it is. Save it, probably as a JPEG would be the most appropriate, and then you would then put that into Dropbox or OneDrive, and then from there, you pull it into Spark. Okay, so one of the things we're trying to get into this class is that there's usually multiple workarounds to try to figure out to do whatever you want to do. But a lot of the platforms don't necessarily support an easy way to do it, but usually there's a workaround. So yeah, so that's one way you could do it. Okay, but anyway, suffice it to say, all this stuff here where it says embedded media, this is all for one of the two major assignments. Okay, so what are the two major assignments that you have to do? Okay, so since I was just talking about that, I'm going to skip over to the website. Okay, so these are all enhancements. So a lot of the stuff you've already done. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this is the assignment as we designed it last spring, and then we redesigned it this fall. And I think it's too many words here. So later today or tomorrow, I'm going to go through and make it a little bit easier to look at all this crap. Because I'm not a fan of tons of words, unless it's like there's certain things that you need lots of words for, and I don't know about this. So I'm going to try to make a list of the things that you haven't done before, and then a list of the general guidelines just in case your current version of your WordPress site, maybe it hasn't done something that was already a requirement, okay? So like some of these things. So before I had said, well, you need at least one portfolio page, and so now we're gonna say, well, you need at least 3, and I wanna see that there's some sort of method to your madness. So I don't know what your madness is, right? But I want it to make sense in terms of organization. So let's say you're a photographer, and so it might make sense for one of the portfolio pages to say photography, okay? Now, not all of you are photographers, right? So if I require you to have one, then that doesn't make sense, right? I think one page could say audio/video, or you can even have a tab that says video, and you could just go ahead and throw the audio in there because they're similar, skill sets that you're showing. One could say graphics, one could say writing. So it's kind of up to you. But I want 3 different pages, and I want at least 3 pages. and just think about how best to organize for a generic viewer who comes to your site from finding it on Google, or you put your link to your portfolio on LinkedIn, or the professor, right? Obviously for the grade, but still, we're designing this. These are public pages, so you want to design it so it's intuitive, so it makes sense. So why is this person chopping up their portfolio in this particular way? So for each of you, it'll be different. So I'm going to make the list a little bit more user-friendly. Suffice it to say, you do need to put all the new stuff you have on there. Okay, so and I've already kind of been pushing you in that direction, right? So you should already have your stuff, your audio and video from the modules 4 and 5. Any new graphics that you produce, you should put on there. One of the things I'm going to ask you to do is make sure you have a couple of photo galleries, okay? And that's going to require you to put in a special widget or plugin in there and install it first, and then choose it as a way to display. And there's lots of them. And that's one of the things I'm going to do over the online day. I'm going to make a video just talking about some of the different options about installing widgets for that particular thing. Now, when we go back up to the embedded media, for the Twitter and also the Facebook social media, for both of those, you basically, in this one here, like I found this guy, and I mean, there's lots of them. I thought he was very direct in a Scandinavian way, so I chose him. But and he shows you how to choose. He goes and through your actual website interface, through your dashboard, you basically can search through plugins that have been vetted by the WordPress community and choose one, install it, and then you there's usually for all of these there's two different options. There's one to put something on an individual page. So let's say you want some Facebook content or like your whole Facebook feed just on one particular page of your website. Then you could go in there. Then you can choose the options for installing into a sidebar, or rather onto that page itself. And also, that particular plugin gives you a couple different options on how you want it to be displayed. And then for most of these plugins also, you can go to your dashboard and then go to your theme tab for your theme, and then you can tell it, for my theme, I want this to be at the footer. So this is like underneath at the bottom of the website. I want all my most recent Facebook posts to come in there. Or it can be on a sidebar. Okay, so usually it's one of the kind of locations that the theme has demarcated as some stuff, plugin stuff, can go there. Okay, now some of you have already gone through, when you did your website the first time, you've already gone through and gotten rid of some of the things that were not useful from your theme, right? So in fact, like I think in the requirements here, it said there's a requirement to have a search bar. I'm going to take that out because I don't think that makes sense. And some of you took out the search bar that was automatically in there. Some of you took out, there was like a generic list of links, okay, which is like an old school thing. Like if you want to have like a sidebar that has your top 5 links to other websites, that's great. That's kind of old school. Now, one thing that's not old school that I think is covered in this Facebook one up here is putting the little graphic icons. You know, the icon for Twitter, like the bird, and the one for Facebook is the F. And I was trying to think, what's the one for Instagram? What does it look like?
It's like the Instagram logo.
Right, the Instagram logo. And so it's like the 4 little boxes, right? And basically, at this point in our like social media obsessed culture, we all understand that if I click on the one for the F, then that's going to take me to that person's Facebook page. So that's kind of shortcut. Maybe that's going on a page where you're not getting the whole Facebook feed, and you just want the people to know. So that's another thing that you can put on there as well. So anyway, just keep that in mind for all these. There's usually 2 options. One, putting the content, the social media content, on one page, just one page only, and the other is for putting it on an area of the whole site, okay, which is usually the two options that make the most sense, are usually sidebar or the footer. Okay, so now for some of these usability things, when I gave you all feedback, we did the critiques for your first version of your WordPress site, and then also in the feedback when I gave you the grade. Some of your themes do a better job of kind of overall usability and aesthetics than others. And some of them are issues that some of you are aware of, right? Like clashing of fonts or clashing of colors, or I might have said, take out things like take out the search bar because it doesn't make sense. So it's just most of you just need to spend some time looking at the site and saying, how can I make it the most usable site? What works and what doesn't work in terms of aesthetics. Just make consistent choices and actual choices. Now, granted, if you got a theme that's well designed, then that person or group of people have been spending time. So you kind of need to do a critique of your own theme and say, okay, well, how does it look? Are things displaying, coming up pretty quickly? I've noticed on a couple of your themes that there's a lot of times there's like these preloaders that are trying to load content that's not actually there. So you go to a page that doesn't really have much content, and there's usually some kind of like preloader icon that's basically like a little dial or a little bird. Sometimes it's kind of funny, and usually those shouldn't be necessary. Okay. Now, one reason why it might be happening, if you put a couple photos on that particular page and you didn't resize them well for how big the file size is, like if the file size is still a megabyte, sometimes that preloader is like kind of trying to deal with that fact. Like I have to display this thing that's kind of huge for a file. So in terms of photos, if it's just a photo being shown on a web page, it really shouldn't be bigger than half a megabyte, and that's still pretty big. Okay. Now, if it's a nice big photo that's like you're really wanting to show some detail, then it could be. But I mean, still, if you have like 4 or 5 photos that are half a megabyte, then that preloader thing is going to go, and we're not going to see any content. But it depends on your page. Some pages they'll just start to load the photos. Yeah.
So I have the preloader on my page as well, and it's like I clicked on that to have it there because from what I understand, like the preloader is just the image, the graphic that shows while everything else is loaded. Like when I didn't have it, my page would load like the first thing,
yeah,
and then the second thing, and then the third thing instead of just all at once.
It's not necessarily a problem in of itself, right? So you might want to go back to those photos and just see if the photos are like super big in size and just resize them in Photoshop. Re-optimize it, right? So like in a JPEG, it doesn't have to be the maximum quality, right? Because you should look at it, like in Photoshop, look at it. Like if you change the quality to like 6 out of 10, can you really see the difference, right? And if it takes it from like 1.5 megabytes to like 200K, I mean, that's a big difference. And then that preloader is not going to really have to do that work, right? So it's just kind of annoying. Like, how many of you are going to click on a site and it's like preloading? No, that's like so like 1999 or something like that, right? So that's like what I had to deal with when I was your age. And that was like in like long time ago, right? That was the dinosaur era, right? So nowadays it shouldn't really be that way, ideally. The preloader is just kind of there letting you know stuff's going to come up. So in of itself, it's not a problem. But if that preloader is happening, especially on connections that are as good as they are at Loyola or even on your phone, you want the content to display a little bit faster. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to put a couple things here that you can do to optimize. So one of the things you can do is you can get some plugins that help you to deal with showing photos really well and use a shortcode. And the shortcode will basically say, well, here's the photo itself. Okay, here's the URL of the photo which has already been uploaded to your website. Okay, and I want you to show a thumbnail size of it And then if someone chooses to either, and you can change the configuration, if someone mouses over, and then all of a sudden it gets bigger, it shows them a nice big version. Okay, and so that does a couple things. One, it doesn't take a lot of real estate on the page. The second is the first thing the website does is it shows the littler, it automatically creates a smaller thumbnail version, and that displays really fast, right? Okay, and it kind of makes it so that it only has to suck up that information for the larger version if you happen to mouse over it. And while it's waiting for you to decide if you're going to mouse over, it's already starting to upload that stuff. So that annoying preloader never happens, and it's a nice way to display. And if you put more than one photo on the same page with that short code, usually most of them have little arrows where the user can just kind of click through and look at all the images. So it's kind of like a photo slideshow. It's a little bit different. I think it would count. If you had to put in your own plugin to do that, to display the content a little bit nicer, then that will count. So I'll put a couple of those on this area as well as just some tips for helping to display content a little bit better. So anyway, so in terms of your enhancement, I'd say there's 3 areas to focus on. Okay, so first get more content on there. Okay, and I will give you the guidelines for so specifically you know what needs to be up there. Second one is get the embeds up there. Okay, and I'll also give you a more kind of clear checklist for what you need. And I'll probably give you some options. So like this here, see 4 embedded content that you don't already have. And you know, I'll give you some leeway on these. I mean, if you have like an Instagram account that is not a public account, first of all, it's probably not going to display, but it's not really meant for public consumption, then do not put it on your portfolio, right? If you have like a Facebook account that now granted, your generation mostly doesn't, okay? Your generation has gotten wise to the fact that your parents and your grandparents and probably not your professors, but potentially any employer, even if you don't give them permission, can go and find your Facebook account and say, I'm going to see what this person's going to be up to, right? So most of you are wised up to that. So if you do have a Facebook account that is kind of like your public face, how you don't mind your parents seeing it, you don't mind potential employers seeing it, then that's fine to put that in there. You know, just be wise to that. That don't put anything that you don't want like your public face to be, because this is a public website, right? So just think of that. So if you really don't have that much of your own, it's okay. You know, I'd rather have your own, but let's say that you have a page that's devoted to sports photography, right? And you don't have your own Twitter feed, but you have your favorite sports photographer, then you can put their Twitter feed in. Just make sure it says, you know, here's my something that obviously it's not yours. You know, granted, I don't think nowadays there's any copyright issues with Twitter or identity issues, because it's usually obvious who it is. Okay, and if you're going to do that, just send me an email. Let me know. I'd rather have your own content in there. Some of these are kind of more, you know, with Google Map. You know, it kind of depends on what. I mean, you probably don't want to put a Google Map to your home address or something like that, but maybe you could be like, I go to Loyola, and then put the Google Map and plug in there that shows where Loyola is, right? That's a pretty safe thing. So some of these you kind of have to be creative in terms of how you're going to put them on your site and how you're going to kind of mold the site into what you want it to be, because they're all going to be public. So so that's the third thing. So the first thing, putting in the more content. Second thing is the embeds, and the third thing is general usability of the site. Okay. So we'll talk more. The little video I'm going to do for Thursday is mostly going to be about all this, and then next week we're going to have critiques. And so all of you, either Tuesday or Thursday, are going to have next week are going to have to come up here, show us your site, show us what you've been working on, achieving, and perhaps struggling with, if that's the case. Okay, so last thing for that, So all the due dates at this point are that last day. Thursday is December 13th at 11:59 at night or something like that. So for this, I don't need you to do anything except do it because I already have. Because I can go to the Bluehost and it has like a little icon for all of your websites, and so I'll just go through and make sure, and like even if like I forget someone, then when I go and say, oh wait, why does this person have a 0 for that assignment? Then I would just go and then I would find it and I would go grade it. Okay, so I'm just going to go through. So yeah, I don't need anything from you all for this other than just do it. Okay, so it has to be completed by that deadline. Okay, got it? So there's no turning it in other than doing it. Because I know all of your URLs for your sites. Okay, so the last one is the Spark page assignment. Okay, so just to let you know, for these two things here, these Dropbox, these assignments, I'm going to make them so you can see them, but do not do anything with them. They are placeholders for the gradebook, because in the gradebook, I have to have a place that's for me to give you a grade. And I am going to make a rubric. So, I mean, you can actually, once I make them visible, you can click in there and you can see the rubric that shows how many points for each of these different things I'm going to give. So you'll see how I'm going to grade them. Then you'll be able to know. So if you see a category where you feel like you haven't done so well, then you could make it better. Okay, so but that's only for you to look and see how I'm going to grade it, and then I'm going to grade it. But these, there's nothing to submit to these. So they're just kind of placeholders because that's the way the Google, the Moodle gradebook works, and also for you to see what the kind of grading sheet I'm using. Okay, when I grade them, it will send you an email. This will be later in December, and then you will know like how I marked for those two assignments. Okay, the final project is the Spark one here, and the portfolio is the portfolio website. Okay, all right. So the Spark page assignment. Okay, so this is pretty similar to the last one, and the reason why we did this was granted WordPress is very popular. It's really good for a content management system like the website or the content management system I use for my wife's business website. It's called Joomla. And it's a little bit more complex, but it's a lot of the same stuff. Like it would be like a social media plugin, and I go install it, and then I give it the parameters. And in terms of making a new page and stuff like that, it's very similar to WordPress. So that's why we did that. We decided to use Spark because it's just kind of an up-and-coming platform, and it's based on doing your own videos and doing your own photos and creating a story. So, in a couple years we might try and do something else. You don't know what the latest technology is, but this just happens to be in vogue now, and it has a lot of the same aspects to other types of digital storytelling. Also, I think it would be a good idea, to do something like this instead of a PowerPoint presentation for another class because it looks really good. Or maybe instead of writing an essay. So, now that you know how to do it, I would not be shy about asking other professors, like even theology, history. Just ask them first and then do it. I think it would probably help you with grades. Not that you need help. Okay, so what we're basically looking for is the next step from what you did for Thanksgiving. All right. So first of all, you need to come up with a topic. I want you to do something that's on campus, and the reason is because you have to use the skills that you've developed in Module 4 and 5 on gathering audio and video. Okay, so it has to be something where in the next 2 weeks you got to go out and take videos and take photos and gather audio. So if I said you could do it on your summer vacation, well then that's how are you going to go recapture that? So you have to do something in the next 2 weeks. And that's another reason why I am giving you until that last day of class. Okay, because there's lots of different things you could do, and you could do something that starts today or happens today, or you could do something that happens to go on in that last week. And because we're Tuesday, Thursday, we don't have a class day in that last week anyway. So, yeah, you have a while to do it, okay? 2 weeks, basically. I would say you should come up with 2 topics. You should come up with your number 1 topic that you really like, something that you think is interesting, and therefore you're probably going to do a better job because you think it's interesting. And you come up with a backup topic that you know you can do. Okay, because I used to teach journalism class where they used to do audio slideshows, and it would always come up with someone who had an idea, like they were going to do something on a basketball game, and they were sick, or the basketball game got canceled, and they're like, "Well, Professor, what am I going to do?" I'm like, "Well, if your editor said I need some kind of thing from you, then you would go out and find something else to do, right?" So make sure you don't, like, let's say you're the one you really want to do, like the main event is on Wednesday, the 12th, or the day before that. Make sure you already have something else that you know you could do, like talking to students about what they're doing for Christmas vacation. Something like that you know you could do. Or what's Christmas like on campus, right? Go and take pictures of all the decorations and talk to people about what they did on campus. Something that's more topical that you can, boom, bang out some interviews and take a lot of photos, and so you get a decent grade, okay? So it's up to you. I don't want to hear anyone, you got 2 weeks to do this. I don't want anyone email me. Now, if you're stuck with a topic, you certainly can email me, and I will give you some ideas. But there is no excuse for not getting this assignment done by that point, okay? You have all this time to do it, okay? So just some ideas. You know, they have the Presents for Christmas event that's coming up. I'm pretty sure, does anyone know the exact date of that? Pretty sure it's before the 13th. I did look up, there's a Loyola men's game. I think there's another women's game the same day. There's even, Loyola's even going to Maryland. So you could go with, I know they're going to have some buses that are going to that game. Loyola's playing at University of Maryland. So you can even go, I think it's the weekend before this. And get on the bus. Get some interviews with students on the bus, take photos, get a little video of some game action, just like, 20 seconds of game action. That would be fun. There's lots of stuff going on with final exams, just like all the stress that's going on. People have strategies for how to study, places to study. Some people are up to 4 in the morning cramming. There's all sorts of things. So it could be kind of a little bit more journalistic like that. It could be more topical. There's all sorts of things that you could possibly do. There's the Miracle on 34th Street. Has anyone heard of that? Because in Baltimore, it's like this whole street where they go crazy insane with decorations, and people invite you into their home. And it's pretty close. It's just in Hamden. So you can get a Uber. I think Loyola even takes some shuttles over there a couple times. So there's tons of topics. I would not recommend, but it's totally fine for you to tell me, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and for me to say, oh yeah, it's a great idea, just in the 1% chance where I say it might not be a good idea. Okay, just based on my previous experience. So you could tell me, that's fine, just send me an email. You don't have to get approved by me, okay, because there's so many possible things to do. Okay, so that's probably the most important thing, because you all know how to do Spark at this point. Okay, so what do you need? Okay, so you need at least 2 videos shot and edited by you. Now I'm going to open this up. You can use whatever platform you want to use. Okay, before we were using Clip, and then I told some of you who have problems with Clip that Adobe has the new platform called Rush. Adobe Premiere Rush is a little bit newer. You could use Premiere. The actual Premiere is on all these computers, that's used by the TV station right next door here. Has better computers, but they're still running Adobe Premiere to do HD broadcast quality video. Granted, you're going to be taking the video clips on your phone, right? So I mean, it's not gonna. So it's a little bit more complex than what Sophia said. She tried it, and you didn't think it was that hard.
Once you got used to it, it wasn't bad.
There's a few things. There's a million bajillion tutorials on YouTube to tell you how to do it. Okay. So that's a little bit more complex. I think most of these computers, they have, do they have iMovie still? Is that still a thing? Like on my Mac, I have iMovie. I think they're slowly trying to phase that out. Yeah, I don't see it on here. I think you can still get it on all Macs. So it's up to you. I mean, you already know how to use one platform that's designed for clips coming from your phone. So, and you don't have to go any more fancy than that. Okay. Okay. So you can do an audio slideshow type format. So if you want to use Soundtrap, get audio from 2 interviews. Okay. Load them into Premiere or Adobe Clip or Adobe Rush, and then just sync them up with some photos from the event or from whatever it is. That's fine. You could do kind of like audio slideshow type format, or just 2 videos. Now, audio is a little hard, as some of you realized, audio by itself with Adobe Spark. Okay, so the only way to really do it is because you can't like use SoundCloud. It won't let you. It doesn't allow for a lot of embeds. You can. One thing that have any of you listened to an album on YouTube before? Does anyone know how to do it or how they do it? Someone's had to listen to an album on YouTube before, right? The fidelity is terrible. Yeah.
Just YouTube Music.
Yeah, well, they had that. That's a new feature. But like, if I wanted like an old school album, like I used to be in some bands back in the day, how would I put it on there? I would digitize it, right? But then I just take maybe the album cover and I take a photo, and then in Premiere or iMovie or whatever, I just take the audio files and slap them on there. So all it is a photo that's kind of the visual placeholder, and then you have the whole album or the whole song or whatever. Okay, so it's really, the format is YouTube, but you're tricking YouTube into basically being an audio file host, right? And they don't care, as long as the copyright's good, they don't care at all. So then you just embed that video. So that's one way to do it. You know, I think that it's probably easier if you really want to focus on the interviews and use Soundtrap, then just take those Soundtrap files and export them and drag them into a video file. And well, you'd have to do that anyway before you put it on YouTube. It's up to you. So you can do like an audio slideshow, that's fine. You can have videos by other people, okay? But that would be like the 3rd or 4th video, okay? So you have to have 2 that you've done yourself, okay? And these videos can kind of serve different kind of needs within your story, right? So let's say you went to the Maryland game, Loyola versus Maryland, and later on, like the next day, the local news has a spot about Loyola playing Maryland, right? There's going to be a video about it, right? And so, and you just think that's interesting to see, because that will have like way better. You don't worry about trying to capture good game like action on your phone. I mean, you're not a professional photographer. Your phone's, you might think your phone's awesome, but your phone sucks compared to like what they're using. I mean, and plus they're stable. You're like going like this, right? So they're the ones. So if you want to have some game action, you could do a pan to get what's it like to be here. Here are all the Loyola fans in green. That's fine to get the atmosphere. But if you find that they did a professional quality video of game action, then just embed that as well. So that will be your 3rd embed for YouTube. So make sure you have, because this will definitely be something I'm going to be tracking for your grade, is that you have 2 that you produced yourself, okay? And the others are just to show me that you're really thinking about telling the story or including something that you can't really capture. Okay, obviously photos. plenty of photos. It kind of just depends on what the story is that you're telling. And all of this need to be synced up with text. Now, I'm not asking for too much. 300 words is not a lot, okay? If you're telling a story, that might take someone like 8 to 10 minutes to kind of browse through it, right? They're probably not going to read every word that you wrote. I might amend this and let's say 250 to 300 because this is not a writing class, right? But a lot of these kind of elements where you're mixing multimedia with other types of storytelling, you have to be able to do both, okay? So this is not going to be a big part of the grade because it's not a writing class, but just, cover, dot your I's, cross your T's, all that stuff, edit it, just make it decent, okay? And the fact is that those of you who go really far in these areas are going to be good at multiple things, right? You need to be a good writer and a good multimedia person and a good graphic source. Now, you might be only great at one thing, okay? You might be a great writer and decent at media. You might be great at media and just a decent writer, but you can't be bad at any one thing because bad at any one thing will get you fired, right? So that's the main thing here is we're trying to, even though we're doing media, don't be a bad writer. And all I would say here is that don't just make a transcript of your interview and put it there. So like if the interviews are talking about, how exciting it was to be at the game, then you can say, so-and-so scored so many points and the shuttle met this time and it took us so long to get down there and we got stuck in some red light, whatever it is. Just don't be totally redundant. And you can, for all this Adobe Spark stuff, just remember that up here is lots of information. So we have those examples of those two articles that were both fairly well written that the students did and for studying abroad, and all this other information here about how to do Spark. So you can continue to use that for references. Okay, so it's going to take you, a while to do this well. Okay, so make use of the online day. Okay, so if whatever you want to do for the Adobe Spark thing doesn't happen until next week, then on the online day and Thursday, focus on the website. Right, I kind of get most of the stuff there, or vice versa, if you want to get the Adobe Spark page done mostly this week, then do that, spend that time doing that, and then next week focus on the WordPress site, okay? But you do have 2 weeks, and really in these 2 weeks you should be focusing on these 2 assignments because I don't think you're going to have to do too much, you're not going to have to do as much preparation for the final exam as you might for some other classes, okay? Because we're not doing multiple choice, and you're going to have the full 3 hours, okay? Now, if you didn't do any of those readings, granted you already did the tutorial journals for mods 3, 4, and 5, you should go back because I'm going to be pulling questions from those readings that you would use those readings, and when you're answering the questions, those are the first places you might go, okay? But other than that, I don't think you have to do too much preparation. So instead, I would focus more on the final website revision and the Adobe Spark page. Okay, so are there any questions about the Spark page? Okay, so we don't have too much time.